Apparently I find burrowing owls so cool that I'll get up at 4 a.m. to go shoot them.
There's just something very fascinating about the way they behave. They always look so mean, and it's just really funny to me watching them just like scamper up out of their little holes and then go back down in. And when they catch you looking at them, they're always like trying to figure you out. So I found some close ones and went down last night to shoot them. Got some okay stuff, but the location just seems like it would be much better suited for a sunrise. So I'm gonna go down there and try to see what they look like with the sun coming up instead of the sun going down. .30. The sun's literally just now rising. A couple of great egrets, I think, just landed over here in the field. This is the time where that low sun, as it's still got a little bit of red color to it, is going to give some amazing edge lighting to anything that we pick up here, especially if these egrets start flying around at the right angle, a little bit farther kind of toward the sun, then that's gonna look beautiful. One thing I learned specifically when you're doing these low light, backlit kind of environments where the sun's coming up behind or like really heavily side lighting what you're trying to shoot or where you're trying to shoot, you should really underexpose more than what you think you need as you're finding your subject to track, because currently some of these burrowing owls, as they're just sitting in the ground, especially if they're sitting somewhere where it's shady, it looks dark and you might think that you need higher ISO or more open aperture or lower shutter speed. I mean, most of those things are dictated by what you're doing anyway. Different video for a different time. But if you think about if that bird or if that animal was to move and get backlit by the sun, would it get blown out? And if it would, you need to reduce your exposure, however that is you're gonna do. Especially these egrets that are white, if they were to fly in front of the sun and open their wings up and get really big glowy kind of backlit light through them, and I was exposed for them just chilling there in the shade, walking around, all of that would get blown out. You'd lose all that detail, you'd lose all that color. So make sure you're considering not just what it looks like currently, but what it would look like if you capture it in front of the sun.
This shot is an excellent example of what I was talking about. You can see that because I was underexposed when this egret landed and spread its wings out, I was still able to retain the color information and the detail of the feathers. If I hadn't done that, most of the wings would have blown out to just pure white.
So far, the sun is up, the light's looking really good right now, but these owls are looking kind of lazy. None of them seem like they're hungry just yet, so I'm really hoping I didn't drive all the way down here for nothing. You can see I've once again got my trusty Armageddon gear bag. This is a much easier setup for me to be able to move around quickly. The tripod has got the gimbal head on it, that's great and all, but if one of these owls or the egrets fly off somewhere, I can just pick this in the bag up and run. If I gotta come off of the tripod or bring the tripod with me, it's just a much clunkier situation. With these egrets, the way they hunt, you can kind of tell they're sort of like snakes in the way that they strike. So they'll walk around with their necks up and their heads kind of just like bobbing back and forth, and when they see something, they'll get real low and then their neck will kind of coil up, and that's when they're getting ready to shoot out at something. So if you see them get real low to the ground and start staring at a spot in front of them and their neck makes that really accentuated S shape, they're probably about to go for something.
Now, egrets are cool and all, but I was down here for the burrowing owls. I counted 4 of them in the field and not a single one was doing anything at this point.
Is there a 5th one out there? Oh yeah, there's a 5th one out there, I think. Is that a squirrel? No, that's a squirrel. Kind of tough to tell because you just see these little brown mounds sticking out of the brown ground. Brown mound, brown ground. Whoa, okay, hold on. Brown mounds, no, brown mound sticking out of the brown ground. But there are also round brown mounds in the ground. They're round, brown mounds sticking out of the brown ground. Yeah, that was hard. Finally, one of them was preening and kind of looking around like he saw something, and then he took off into the back. So unfortunately, he flew away from me, but I got him coming back in with a June bug right in his talons. Now there's a big herd of goats behind him.
Now this shot is kind of what I was after, but I really wanted to get it in that early morning reddish sunlight. Also before all that mirage started showing up behind him.
The sun's getting kind of high. The mirage is starting to get pretty bad. The heat mirage, if you don't know, you've seen it on the road or like in any movie where they try to show you that it's hot. It's that like wavy kind of look to the air above a hot surface. Simply put, when it's hot, especially if you're shooting close to the ground or water, things don't tend to look as good.
Here you can really see that mirage effect. Look behind the owl, it's almost like water. Shortly after this clip, the battery on my new R5 Mark II died, and since I only had one, I had to grab the backup.
Went back and grabbed the R3 because now it seems like this one in particular is very hungry. I just watched him grab 3, I think, on my way back. I'm gonna sit for maybe another 10 minutes or so, see if this guy's still hungry, and if so, I'm staying as long as the action's happening. The only regret I have is having wasted the entire battery on the morning when they were doing almost nothing at all. Having to play with my R3 is not that big of a deal. I should probably not be complaining about that. Can't complain about these fucking flies though.
And that felt like a good time to call it. Here's a couple more photos from the day and one from yesterday. Leave a comment if you want to see me do a comparison video between the new R5 Mark II and my R3 or R5 Mark I. Make sure you're subscribed so if I do that video, you'll see when it comes out, and I'll see you on the next one.